All right, babies, last video of the day. So, I this year I'm making it a point to go through popular books, and I'm gonna read you a quote from the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. So, these are the books that you kind of start reading when you start your like self-development journey. For me, I think the first book I started reading on this kind of journey, yeah, the first books that kind of like alleviated me were was Kierkegaard. I think existentialism was the trigger for me to start looking at the world differently and to start kind of like wanting to do things different, to change. But it's funny because all the greats kind of like harmonize in what they say, and most of the books, especially like Think and Grow Rich, is an old book. It's like 100 plus years old, and a lot of books afterwards kind of like utilize the same, like they use similar examples and something like this. But the quote is this: "When attempting something new, do not trust your reason." What? But I completely agree. Because when you're attempting something new, your reason is built on whatever was old. So you can't fucking trust it. But what do you trust when attempting something new? Naturally, intuition. What the fuck is intuition? There is where I don't think a lot of people truly understand how the intuition is built through all the experiences that we have. But like starting from me, right? I recently had a dabble with faith, and I wrote down the actual like note. It's a beautiful story. I would want to tell it, but intuition. If you can't trust your reason, which makes sense and had made you survive this long, how can you actually like? What is it about your intuition that you can trust? Well, intuition is built on reason, but it's not built really on reason itself. Reason is derived from the active things that we do daily that were built by intuition. But if you were to look at it from a more, if you were to look at it from if you were to build on top of something, you start doing something, and then the better you get at it, the better you develop the formula, the reason behind how it's done. And when that is done, complete, fixed, sorted, as in you don't have to think about it anymore, that becomes input, like the input that your intuition requires for you to kind of like do something a bit more, maybe, or whatever. That it gives you that extra edge. It's like if you look at master guitarists when they're playing, they can, it's not just they can close their eyes. They're no longer with the guitar. They're just playing, and the whole of them, the master pianists, all kinds of musicians. And the reason for that is because their intuition is completely just running amok, and it's instinct. They're completely like in their zone, in their flow. But to get there and to sound good, they put in all these hours of practice. And every single time you kind of like practice something new on the guitar, practice something new on your instrument, practice something new in your real life, what you're doing is basically building up your arsenal so that your intuition could actually utilize later in the future. So when you're attempting something new, the last thing you want to do is approach it with reason. You have to approach it fully with whatever intuitive responses you could have. You have to approach it fully with what is it that I am actually doing? What is it that I am actually contributing to? What is the reason for me to kind of want to do this? And then basically from there, you have to trust that you're going to get there through you're going to build your actual reason as you attempt it. Because to get to something new, You have to do something new. And for something new to succeed, you can't do it the same way you did the old things. Brings me to Einstein's quotes, one of my favorites. Insanity is doing the same thing over again, but expecting a different result. Right? Effectively, that's what we're doing. Now, it's funny because this book talks about a whole lot of stuff, including like belief, faith, autosuggestion. He also explains how the mind basically is very much, if you sit around bad people and eventually you kind of get used to being bad or bad being normal, maybe. And if you get used to like if you sit next to smart people, you kind of like get used to smart being normal. All the things that you engage with and interact with are either something that you're familiar with or you're not. Which kind of puts you in a whole split between you and yourself. The days where you're actually like doing something you're used to are the boring days, the longer days, the days where time seems to move slowly. Well, the days where you're doing something you're not used to doing seem more like the days that are like that finish fast. And by the end of it, you feel like "Oof, you can't wait to sit and do jack shit." These are the interesting days, the good days. I don't know. I still have about 4 minutes to fill in this video. But for me, this kind of like explains itself. Is it maybe like the reason I liked it is because intuition is also built. So my attempts are to kind of like build my skill set, so I'll be able to utilize them in like different areas. So when I started learning music theory, man, it really influenced everything else, especially when it comes to business. It allowed me to see more business from an art form instead of a science. And when I started studying Shiismo, Japanese, it allowed me to see how languages are created based on the culture and how the way people express themselves is the bigger attributes. So Spanish became a lot easier for me to like comprehend because like now I can completely see the difference between why Spanish people speak the same way they do and why like the French speak the way they do and why Lebanese people speak differently than other Arabs. It's the form of expression becomes a communication thing. And here, anytime you're attempting something new, you're basically approaching it. You have to build a new communication bridge between you and the new thing in order for it to actually become a part of you. You have to be able to communicate with its essence, with whatever it is that you're trying to kind of like get out of it, right? Like, why the hell do you want to do it? Why the hell do you want to approach it? And so ultimately, maybe communicating is you can't trust your reason because your reason is based on a fixed language that already exists. But to communicate with something, to try something new, to attempt something, he uses the word attempt. I love it. I love it, not try. When attempting something new, you basically have to, it seems like you're learning a new language, you're learning a new skill. And your intuition will find a better fit for anything that you approached, for any part of your reason that could go inside. But at that time, they say you can't trust your reason, that means you can't really trust your own self, your own initiative. You have to really trust that there will be a method that's built in between these things. And that allows you to kind of like freely go back and forth in order for you to learn better and more and like sort yourself out in a much more, I want to say, in a much more successful way. I never thought about anytime I'm trying learning something new as a form of communication. Even though I always say that everything in this world is a negotiation, and negotiation is a form of communication. It's all about how you interact, it's all about how you communicate, it's all about how you say something. So even when I'm attempting something new, there's a communication behind it. There's a certain kind of way I want to open up in order for me to be able to understand what language it speaks. Whether it's a computer, whether I'm studying engineering or architecture, these forms and concepts and methods that were constructed around these ideas are literally a form of us communicating with those concepts, us communicating with those structures. And I say structures figuratively, like the actual structure of being an architect, the actual like engagement with like you can learn how to play the guitar and you can figure it out on your own, definitely. But there's a reason why there's a music theory around the guitar. So at the very least, you kind of like within 1 year grab enough of the basics for you to experiment much smoother and faster and better. And the same thing, like when you go to school for 4 years to study architecture, you can figure out how to build a fucking skyscraper if you research it on your own, or you start building buildings from zero to scratch. But why the fuck would you? You stand on the top of giants, and every one of these giants communicated and created a form of communication with their art, with their craft, for us to utilize, understand, and implement. All right, this is actually like super huge. Okay, thank you guys. I'm gonna ponder this a lot. Oh shit, man. So the next video after this is actually about communication. Here, sneak peek. Communication. How writing made me see how I couldn't understand myself. But I'm not gonna do it today. Yalla guys, see you next video.